happy little games. Going into an average arcade in the 1980s, you were treated with sometimes between 15 to 20 machines. Each of these were usually a single screen affair with nothing else out of the ordinary. In the mid-1980s, there were some unique examples though of how technology and video games merged together like never before. Outrun had its moving cabinet. Battlezone had its submarine viewer. Afterburner had its unique moving cabinet. And then we have the multi-screen mammoth, which is featured in our video today, Ninja Warriors. Ninja Warriors is a simultaneous two-player 2D beat-em-up featuring shurikens, knives, as well as robots with twisted steel and sex appeal. Where did the idea for the robotic ninjas come from? What does the arcade game Darius have to do with this game? So grab your shurikens and get ready to slice and dice because this is the history of the Ninja Warriors. The year is 1987 and Taito arcade designer Masakai Ogata is planning out his next game. His bosses at Taito wanted a side-scrolling beat-em-up with simultaneous two-player action, but other than that, Mr. Ogata was given free rein. Rather than do a straight-up ninja title, he took inspiration from the 1984 movie The Terminator and decided to create androids who looked human on the outside, but on the inside they were liquid metal. In particular, he liked the part where the Terminator takes damage and you can see the robot underneath. Taito at the time were very big in the arcades, having produced such classics as Chase HQ, Raston, Arkanoid, and Bubble Bobble. We can't go any further until we discuss the technology used in this game, which was taken from Taito's earlier arcade hit Darius. Darius was released in 1986 and was a fantastic shooter, but what most people remember upon seeing the original arcade cabinet was the massive size of both the cabinet and the screen. The game used 3 monitors side by side, which really wasn't innovative because previous games had done this before, including Buggy Boy. What was unique was the seamless screen with no borders around each monitor. This was achieved by placing 3 13-inch CRTs, positioning monitors on the left and right at the bottom of the chassis, and placing a central monitor towards the back alongside a half mirror. When you combine the left and right screens reflected on the mirror alongside the central screen seen through the mirror, the player sees one seamless screen which needs to be seen in person to be appreciated. One problem with the game is that if the screens aren't lined up properly, you don't get that nice, seamless display. This is evident in a lot of the pictures you've seen posted on the internet. Ninja Warriors was released by Taito in 1988. Despite the title screen having a 1987 date, the game did not officially roll out until February of the following year. As the story goes, the game takes place in the grim futuristic year of 1993, where corrupt President Bangler has given the military complete autonomous control. A group of renegade scientists have decided that enough is enough and are determined to take back the country by any means necessary. They create 2 advanced androids to take down the evil military along with the devilish president. The androids are codenamed Kunoichi, which is the red-suited blonde-haired female, and the name of the other blue android, simply Ninja. The duo makes their way through the devastated streets of the city, fighting off all the evil forces that attempt to stop them as they make their way to the final showdown at the White House. This is a simultaneous 2-player brawler similar to the arcade games Russian Attack and Shinobi, where you move your character to the right, taking out the enemies. The game uses a standard 8-way joystick with a button for your dagger and a button for your shurikens. Shurikens are in short supply, so it's best to use them wisely, although various enemies will drop refills. The enemies will not only attack you from the right, but also from the left as well, so you need to be on your toes. Instead of multiple lives per character, you have an energy bar which will slowly deplete. The more damage you take, the more of your android skin will dissipate, showing the metal underneath. If you end up taking too much damage, then the android will explode in a shower of nuts, gears, and bolts. The various enemies you encounter are standard soldiers with knives, jumping soldiers who appear to have done crack before coming on duty, blue-suited soldiers who take double the damage, and even attack dogs. PETA, my friends, would not be happy. The game takes place across 6 levels, with you having to dispatch a mini-boss at the end of each one. The first level is on a city street. The second one being outside of a military base. The third one sees you inside the military base. The fourth one is back on the streets. The fifth one is in the sewers. And the sixth and final stage is the White House. Some of the mini bosses you encounter are pretty unique, including a ninja sword lady, iron arm, fire breather, a giant tank which makes multiple appearances throughout the game, and the final boss of the game, the President of the United States. Once you defeat him, a mysterious figure presses a destruct button and the White House, including you, are turned into rubble. You then get a long speech with some excellent English all throughout. I can recall seeing this game at Aladdin's Castle at South Park Mall in Moline, Illinois, and was blown away by both the size of the screen and the gameplay. The animation on all of the characters is extremely smooth and it looks fantastic in widescreen. The music was composed by Taito's in-house band Zuntata and it sounds fantastic, especially the Mega CD version, but more on that in a little bit. The gameplay is slower than Shinobi or other beat-em-ups, but it really doesn't affect the playability. It can get a little frustrating at times, but it's still a blast to play, especially on a real arcade cabinet. I do know Galloping Ghost in Chicago has it, so be sure and check it out if you get the chance. In 1994, Taito released the Ninja Warriors again for the Super Nintendo. Programmed by Natsumi, this is essentially a remake of the first game, only with lots of new additions. The basic plot premise is very similar to the original, with former President Bangler, who has now taken up the moniker Bangler the Tyrant as he once again tries to take over the world. The renegade scientists send out 3 prototype androids to stop him and hopefully save the day. The game features 3 selectable characters, including Ninja, who is now a giant hulking android with metal nunchucks. The female red ninja Kunoichi, who uses a pair of kunais to keep the tradition of slice and dice. And finally, the third character is Kamaitachi, who has long blades on his forearms. Each character has their own unique speed and techniques, including dashes, jumps, blocks, grabs, and various attacks. The basic gameplay stays the same, except the shurikens have been removed for some reason. Using the block is imperative if you want to make it very far in the game. You also have a power meter which, when full, will let you unleash a powerful attack which will damage all the enemies on screen. In addition to your variety of attacks, there are also items you can pick up along the way to use against the enemies, such as large safes and motorcycles. Certain levels will also introduce hazardous elements such as minefields and helicopters. The game takes place across 8 levels with many new types of enemies and mini-bosses at the end of each one. The levels you will encounter are an office area, harbor, subway, parking lot, headquarters, and finally the machine room. Some of the mini-bosses you encounter include Chainsaw Bull, Phantom Ghost, Silverman, Zelos, and Bangler himself on the final stage. The graphics are large and in charge with smooth animation. The playability is extremely tight and works really well on the Super Nintendo. The game is quite a bit easier than the arcade game with unlimited continues. A nice little feature is the ability to choose a different android after you continue. There are a couple of missing features from the arcade game, including your character taking any sort of battle damage. He does still blow up though when he dies. Another shortcoming is that the game is strictly a one-player affair with a simultaneous two-player option solely missing. All in all though, it's a fantastic update to the original and is still fun to play to this day. "25 years after the Ninja Warriors rocked the Super Nintendo, the Ninja Saviors Return of the Warriors was released for the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. This is a full remake of the original Super Nintendo title with all the backgrounds and sprites redrawn in all of its high-definition glory. The basic story is the same as Bangler the Tyrant is trying to take over the world. The original trio of androids return with not only Ninja, Kunoichi, and Kamaitachi, but 2 new characters including Yaksha, who was a lusty but perhaps a little bit busty female cyborg with a long blade arm, and also Raiden, who is a giant mecha and is even larger than Ninja. The last 2 characters can be unlocked by beating the game. By the way, if you think I'm being sexist regarding Yaksha, keep in mind she's an android. So if any android snowflakes wish to comment, please do so below. The game takes place across 8 levels just like the Super Nintendo version. The simultaneous 2-player action, which was sorely lacking from the previous game, makes its triumphant return. The only downside to this is that while playing the simultaneous 2-player mode, both players share the same life bar and power meter. The graphics are fantastic along with the silky smooth animation. The camera is zoomed out when compared to the Super Nintendo version, but this puts it more in line with the arcade game, but it allows you to see much more of the screen and more of the action. The sound effects and music are fantastic with arranged tunes from the Super Nintendo version. You can also unlock the original arcade soundtrack, which is a neat little bonus. The gameplay is fantastic, and if you are a fan of the original Super Nintendo title, you are absolutely going to love this one as well. It's old school 2D sprite-based gaming, and it's a joy to play. There were a fair number of conversions of the original arcade game, but let's start it off by looking at the queefiest version, which resides in the Amstrad. I realize the original gameplay is a little bit slow, but this one takes it to a whole new level. If you can adjust to the snail pace of the game, then it's not too bad. The graphics are detailed and well animated with decent controls, but the hit detection is questionable. The sound effects are full of bloops and bleeps and plenty of queefs, so if you like that sort of thing, then this is the game for you. The Spectrum version looks pretty good despite being in monochrome. The character sprites are very detailed, but the enemy sprites are extremely skinny. If they got a suntan, they would look like thermometers. The animation is smooth with surprisingly fast gameplay. There are hardly any sound effects, which I guess could be a good thing. The controls are decent but not quite as tight as the Commodore 64 version. Since the game is in monochrome, it can be a bit difficult to see exactly what's going on when the action is hot and heavy. Overall, if you can get past the lack of color, this is a rather good conversion on the humble Specky. The good old Commodore 64 version is up next, and it's a rather fantastic conversion for an 8-bit machine. The speed of the game is spot on, although sometimes it seems to run just a little bit too fast. The controls are excellent despite only having one fire button. The graphics are excellent with large detailed sprites. The smooth animation was brought over to this one and it looks really good. We even get nice multi-layered scrolling in the background. The music is absolutely fantastic and it plays while you play, which is always a good thing. If you own a 64 and are a fan of the original arcade game, be sure and check this out. Sticking with the Commodore, let's take a look at the Amiga version. This is another beautiful conversion by the sales crew who previously converted Silkworm, which was almost arcade perfect. This one can be held to the same standard and it looks incredible. The animation and sprite work are very well done with excellent music and digitized sound effects all throughout. The game uses the dynamic loader system which loads in the next section of the game while you are playing, so there are no load times except for the one time when you have to swap to disc 2. Again, we only have one fire button, but the controls are still nice and tight. If you have never checked this out on the Amiga, you owe it to yourself to do so. The Atari ST port is very similar to the Amiga version, only with slightly less color. The scrolling is not as smooth, but it's still enjoyable to play. The digitized sound effects are nice, but the music is only average. The controls are nice and very similar to the arcade original. The PC Engine version looks rather close to the arcade game despite everything having a zoomed in effect. The animation is silky smooth and the controls feel great. The level layouts are identical to the arcade game, which is always welcome in my opinion. The background graphics are missing a lot of the details found in the arcade and other home conversions. At random times during the game, there is some occasional flickering of the sprites. The boss tank is also missing from this conversion. The sound effects are nice, but the music could have been better. The game controls pretty well, although not quite up there with the Mega CD version. Unfortunately, the 2-player mode is missing, but other than that, this is a pretty good conversion for the PC Engine. The Mega CD version was released a few years later than the other ones, and it's a really good conversion with some nice extras. This is the only version of the game, including the arcade original, that actually expanded upon the story and told you what was going on. It also provides even more detail with digitized stills fleshing out the backstory. The animation is smooth like butter with nice multi-layered scrolling backgrounds. The play area has a zoomed in effect, which does take some getting used to if you have played a lot of the arcade game, but it does have nice large detailed sprites. Running off a CD-based system, of course the music is going to be good, with Red Book audio also provided. Not only do you get the original arcade tunes, but also rearranged ones, and they both sound fantastic. The controls are absolutely perfect and it feels exactly like the arcade game. This is without a doubt the best home conversion of the game back in the day. The PC Engine home conversion was released on the Wii Virtual Console in 2008. In 2017, an arcade perfect version was finally brought home and released on the PlayStation Network. And that brings us to the end of the history of the Ninja Warriors. The original arcade cabinet was something to be seen back in the day. The mammoth size of the cabinet, along with the seamless screen, was so impressive, and the gameplay still holds up in my opinion. If you ever run across this machine out in the wild, be sure and check it out. I've been hearing my whole adult life that size doesn't matter, but in the case of this arcade machine, it sure does. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to support me on Patreon, please click the link below. Also, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed my content. Thank you so much for watching.